as I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge. Dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts, freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose. And that's love for country. And to the Republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people. And it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
What really makes me angry is when we have the first black American woman, a former United States Marine, is elected as the Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Afterwards, Democrats call her the black mouth of white supremacy. And you know what? For that guy on Saturday Night Live, let me make sure you get this one, Justin. I'm your Huckleberry. I'm your Huckleberry. And they go on to say that she's a racist puppet. First of all, I've seen many Marines in my lifetime. I've worked hard with them. I've dropped them off on jobs. But you know what? Marines are not puppets. Marines are not trained that way, folks. Never have and never will be.
The song is for all Americans. I just wrote this last night. Well, some say I'm trouble, some say I'm extreme. 'Cause I love this country and the American dream. And I'll let no politicians tell me what to do. 'Cause my blood runs red, white, and blue. Yeah, I was raised country with work on my hands. Well, you respect your neighbor and you respect the land. And I'll let no president tell me what to do. 'Cause my blood runs red, white, and blue. Yeah, my blood runs red, white, and blue. Yeah, Daddy taught me right from wrong. When to be humble and when to be strong. And I'll fight for freedom if that's what I must do. 'Cause my blood runs red, white, and blue. Now Papa's passed while I was off to war. And this country's changing, ain't the same anymore. But I'll fight for freedom, yes, I'll fight for you. 'Cause my blood runs red, white, and blue. Hope you like it. Keep the faith, brothers. Stand strong. Fight for freedom.
Happy hump day, everyone. This is Vincent, voraciously Vincent, right from my heart. I was listening to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I thought to myself, they're not allowing children to do this in the schools, okay? So what could we possibly do as parents, for instance, at a bus stop? Notice what I just said, going off to school. I would like to challenge some parents that have a couple, two kids or more to stand up as they're waiting for their bus and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Why am I asking that? I'm asking parents to show unity. Unity of the children together, saying that. It's kind of a prayer that they get to school safely, that they have no corrupt teachers that are, well, I'll get to that subject later, but that they're safe, that no one goes in and harms our kids. Again, most of you know that have become my friends through this past year, know that I don't have any children. I don't have any dog in this fight. And yet my heart bleeds for those kids. And referencing the song by Russell Hughes that was just played earlier in the opening, I'd asked him about a particular line because I wanted to know if in fact he was a veteran, and he wasn't. But that's what a bard does. He writes a song, she writes a song, and she writes a song that captures the emotions of everyone and anyone who has, in this case, going to war, served in the United States military. I dedicate this show to the people who are trying their very best to protect this nation under the tyranny and dictatorship of this government. So I'm going to open up with this session being a Vincent's Voice venting session. And why? I didn't want to prepare anything today. I've got a lot of things floating around in my head. A lot of sadness and a lot of happiness. But I couldn't have found a better quote than the one that I found for today. And that is to listen to your own voice, your own soul. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And that is by Buddha. He was a religious leader, Nepal. He died in India. But again, it's so simple when you think about it that you have to listen to your own voice and your own soul. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And I've mentioned this before on other programs, maybe once or twice. Again, I'm one of those that can't mess up a truth. But men, notice what I just said, that men have gut feelings and women have intuition. They're guided by their hearts and their minds. Men are guided by what they feel in their heart. And sometimes their minds just, well, can't keep up. And that's why you have the incident like a slap, a little grade, a slap heard around the world. If you guys, any of you guys could, by the way, figure out who made that slap famous as of late, just text it. Would like to hear it. But today I'm going to bring a guy on. I haven't heard from him in about a month or so. Seems like we're getting quite a viewer audience with some wonderful women on the conservative view here on the Bill of Rights Network, which is a First Amendment freedom of speech network, which means we could say things that are hateful that we may not like to hear from someone, or someone may say those things, but they're allowed to voice their opinion just the same. And I've got a gentleman that's been with me on here off and on for quite some time, and I'm not going to be outnumbered by the women. Conservative view. A big shout out, by the way, to Barbara, Sally, Tina, Kimberly, and all the women that are really trying to voice the concerns that parents, that women have for their families. You can catch that on Tuesday nights, by the way, here on the Bill of Rights Network. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my buddy Chad on. Chad, how are you doing, brother?
I'm actually doing pretty good, to be honest with you. So
It was funny. You sent me a message because I did what? I messaged you within the past 10 minutes.
Yeah, definitely.
and you were right there, Johnny, on the spot, brother.
I try to be like that. Can't always be, but I try to be like that.
And that to me and for you to come on here tells me, or at least allows me to feel that you feel not only comfortable, but that you feel like it's important that we have, a prostate. I'm not gonna put that one on there. Okay, here we go. Oh boy, these two knuckleheads. Here we go.
Oh, John.
Okay, John, that's all right. But guess what? This is what Chad said to me just a moment ago. Okay, a prostate exam doesn't feel right. Sorry, Vince. Yeah, he's absolutely right. But hello, by the way, to Ross and John and Ruth.
Darius Stone down there, that is a Texas flag, not a Chile flag. You
have to learn your flags there, Darius. Learn your flags. Glad you're on board. Glad you're here. But yeah, try to learn your flags, brother. It's nice that you noticed too, by the way.
Yeah, it's nice you noticed, but I promise you that's a Texas flag.
Okay. Well, enough of Darius and discussing the backdrops of, I wanted to just let you know, Chad, I know I didn't let you know this earlier. We're going to keep the comments up, so I should be able to put them on here a little bit more often. Did you put that one on?
I didn't put that one on. And no, Darius, they're not the same flag. Chile, whereas Texas has a red stripe on the top and bottom, and the whole top or the whole side of it's covered with the blue and star. A Chile flag only has the top corner filled with a Chile star. So just so you know.
And John, a lot of things don't feel right in life, and that's why facts are more important than feelings these days. And that's absolutely true. By the way, that is absolutely true. I like Darius. God bless you, Darius. You fact checked, and you were kind enough to say, "Yep, that's right. He just checked." Indirectly, Darius just said he was wrong. Darius, I love you. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
That's the Florida flag, Darius. And I will say that you've done more fact checking so far than Facebook does, because if you try to do a Texas flag emoji, then it comes up as the Chilean flag. So you've done more fact checking than Facebook actually has. So,
and speaking of Facebook, folks, and Chad, I was just getting ready to say this. I didn't tell you. I didn't cry. I didn't whine. We have someone on here that has many different titles. Jailbird. It's a shout. Oh, I'm not saying no more than that. But you know, I was actually in jail again.
You need to come up with another name then.
No. I actually did. I thought maybe Zookeeper might be good.
Well, huge ass is me, so huge ass has to be me. So
anyway, so I was placed in jail because I responded and made a comment. And it was exactly this. And by the way, Facebook, if you cancel this show right now, you are definitely Marxist, socialist, commie pigs.
Better watch out for Elon Musk, Mark.
Hey, talking about the jailbird. Here she is. Anyway, I can't steal her name, she says. I don't want that name. I'm the zookeeper, jailbird. Anyway, I actually made this statement, which was what Biden has done is treasonous to the American people and should be executed. And why did I write that? Well, I wrote that because in case anyone isn't aware of what's going on the border, he is allowing cartel, MS-13, Latino counts, child sex traffickers, drugs, fentanyl coming across this border, and it is a national security risk. It's a national security risk. And I've been discussing this, but did you hear that Governor Abbott actually sent a bus? He kept his promise. He sent 23 of them today up to Washington, D.C. Did you hear about that?
I didn't hear about that today anyway.
Yep, they just delivered 23, 19 men and 4 women. And, you know, these people are supposed to be seeking asylum from persecutions of different sorts. And they are dressed, like, for instance, one was dressed head to toe in Nikes, believe it or not. In Nikes.
That doesn't surprise me.
Well, isn't your Canadian border where most of the drugs come through? Darius, I hate to assume anything, but you're not here in our country, is what I'm thinking. But no, the drugs are not mainly coming through Canada. They are coming right now. Fentanyl. They just picked up 2 men that had enough fentanyl to kill 4.7 million people. Ah, he's from London. Darius, thank you for being from London. It's about 9 o'clock. It's about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I think.
No, it's not that late. It's like 10 or 11 or 12.
Wow. Well, thank you for being on, Darius. Most definitely. Thank you.
Yeah,
it's 11:20.
So
right on. Well, no, Darius, actually, they're coming through what's called an open border, the southern border of our United States, which is a map that I have behind me. There you go. You can see Texas right there. And it's wide open, basically.
Canada is much more strict about drugs and stuff than Mexico is, and then there's cartels in Mexico as well, so they can just ship it and come right up through Mexico. So Canada is a lot more strict about drugs and stuff coming into their country than Mexico is, so they just come up through Mexico instead, or South America, or wherever they can land at.
And it's very true. John mentioned that fentanyl is brought in from China to Mexico. Mexico supplies, quote unquote, the machinery manufacturing of the fentanyl. of those little tiny pills. And believe me, those little blue round pills are not Viagra, guys. They will stop your heart. They're not going to do anything for you. But thank you, John, for sending that.
The hardest thing they have with banning so much fentanyl is that it is used as a drug quite often here in the U.S. in hospitals and medical treatment. So,
and it's borderline, if I'm not mistaken, with morphine.
Yeah, pretty much. It's stronger than you get a stronger dose of fentanyl than you do with morphine. So a smaller amount would make you more messed up. So one of the problems you have with fentanyl is they mix it with stuff like heroin, and then you get a bigger high off of it. But if you don't do it that much, then like cops, for example, normal people. So if you get it on you, then you're going to likely overdose because it's still stronger than what you would get in the hospital or something like that, less diluted. You know, it'd be just like morphine. If you're not going to get a pure morphine drip if you're in the hospital, you know. So if you have pure morphine, then that's going to be worse, which, okay, yeah, John Porta said fentanyl is closely related to oxycodone, which would still be a
narcotic.
So, well, a narcotic, but be more specific, it'd be an opiate. So,
and Sally here says there are laws in the U.S. that will be automatic jail time in Canada.
Yes.
And that's why we don't, Darius, that's the reason why we don't have a large influx of drugs coming from Canada whatsoever. Because the laws are just, well, that's what they are. They're laws. Laws are set in place to safely protect American citizens. And really, laws are in place around the world to protect that nation's citizens.
And laws are actually a lot more enforced in Canada than they would be in Mexico. Like you can buy off cops or politicians very easily in Mexico, or you might get shot if you won't let them buy you off. Then you might get shot. So I forget what it was, but there was a whole bunch of people running for president in Mexico last time, and a whole lot of them just ended up dead.
Well, John also says if you aren't in a coma or on a hospice care, you just don't need it.
Well, as far as fentanyl goes, I have to somewhat disagree with that because I've seen them give fentanyl to a lot of people.
Michael Jackson, a great man that died. He's one.
Yes.
And you look at Prince or the artist. Two great men, wonderful entertainers, incredible icons of our lifetime. Neither one of them could ever be replaced. And I don't believe really there's anyone in line to take and carry those torches that those two men carried in the entertainment industry. So now Darius says that there's been 1,000% increase in drugs seized on the Canadian border in a year, apparently. I haven't heard anything even remotely like that, so I can't say yes or no to that.
I really haven't either, so I couldn't say yes or no to that either. But
and Sally made a very good point when she said that Mexico is the black market of the world right now. And John actually said that Michael Jackson died of propofol.
That's what my wife just said too. My wife said that as we were talking to.
But the thing is, it's this drugs that are coming across that are going to literally wipe out our nation. I'm afraid. I mean, when we were young men, I know I can speak for myself, and I know there's a decade or two between you and I, Chad, respectfully. But seriously, I think we all experimented a little bit, to a degree.
Yeah, as far as a lot of drugs, when experimented a little bit, I didn't usually do experimenting would be what I did with most of them, but I did try a few, not a pillhead type, because I hated pills, to be honest with you.
Well, maybe we should have John on here because apparently he used to be a pillhead. I love you, John.
Yeah, I do too. I love John too, but I wasn't a pillhead, but I tried a lot of other stuff, and a lot of it I could definitely see where maybe the addiction would come from, or also just the want to try it. But I could also see you going and committing suicide on some of them too. So,
Well, it's awful funny because I was watching not long ago, just a couple nights ago, they were talking about how they want to use the psychedelic drugs from magic mushrooms for people for medical purposes, by the way, as well. I've done magic mushrooms 4 times. All 4 times I ended up on the floor in a fetal position in pain because I believe it's called strychnine is one of the chemicals that are in it. Natural, by the way, I believe. And it was very painful to me, yet people around me were laughing and having a great old time. I don't know.
I haven't done magic mushrooms in a while, but last time I did, I remember sitting on the front porch with a couple of my friends and we couldn't stop laughing. So,
and I may be I'm highly mistaken because I said that both those guys died of fentanyl when in reality, I believe that they both did die of propylene. I think that's how you pronounce it. But another thing that came across the news, believe it or not, was the psychedelics of licking toads. Do you have any game on that at all?
I have heard of that, but I think it was more on Family Guy that I heard of that.
Okay.
I think that was on Family Guy that I heard about licking toads. And some of that stuff, like on The Simpsons or Family Guy, is actually true. They just put it on there because it's too dumb for anybody to actually do it and believe in it in some ways.
Very much true. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I do remember sending you a bumper sticker, Totally Trump.
Yes, I still have it.
I had a business, and I'm going to dominate for about not even 3 minutes here, Chad. So bear with me. I happen to be kind of what they would call a herpetologist, and that's a study of amphibians, in my case, the toads. And I studied the Bufo marinus out of Australia. And an article was given to me through Time magazine by my girlfriend's nephew about 30 years ago. Dr. Andrew Weil, a professor at Tucson, Arizona at the time, had gone down to Peru. And he had gone down, of course, to do some research, okay? And ultimately what happens is the Bufo marinus, or all toads, since they don't have sharp teeth and claws, they secrete from the back of their eyes, you see these big sacs, they secrete a bufotoxin, a venom, a poison.
Yeah, I was just looking at it.
And so Dr. Andrew Weil was seen in a picture where he was smoking this particular bufotoxin of the Bufo marinus. Now, of the Bufo alvarius. Bufo alvarius. Anyway, he made this statement, and I have it up here almost memorized verbatim. It makes LSD look like a glass of milk. Unlike taking peyote and talking to the gods for 4 or 5 days, you become a god for a week. That's how potent this stuff is.
Evidently, it's pretty potent, I guess. I was just scanning there, and one of the articles come up was from here in Orlando, but it's a story from San Francisco from 1990. And then a few other stories come up was about the Arizona Rehabilitation Clinic for toad licking.
And that would be the Bufo alvarius that they're licking. That's a difference from the Bufo marinus toad. I do know the difference between the two because the Bufo marinus was predominantly overpopulating all of Australia. They're known as the cane toad.
Right.
So
I wouldn't know that by just learning their species name, but
yeah, it's a Bufo alvarius or the Colorado bullfrog.
Because I don't really go out looking for certain toads to lick. So,
well, don't lick any on the southeastern coast, southeastern region of the U.S. You want to be on a southwestern side of the U.S.
Right. Yeah.
So, the thing is, people will do just about anything. Kids will do anything to escape pretty much the reality. So experiment.
I would say that's even worse, way worse in today's reality. And even the generation after me, because I remember having my best friend's nephew come down to live here in Florida for a while to try to get his life straight. And he would talk about all kinds of things they would do just to try to get high, that it'd be like, robo tripping, when you go and drink a whole bottle of Robitussin and take something else with it. Or here's something that I heard of a few years ago. The dang sure wasn't what would you think trolling is?
What would I think trolling is?
If you heard I'm going to go trolling, what would you think I was talking about?
Stalking.
Okay. They're talking about doing ecstasy and acid at the same time. Ecstasy, MDMA, and acid, LSD, at the same time.
Wow.
And I'd never heard of that before.
Wow. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. I guess Sally, who's done. Sally, by the way, folks, she is around the country, can be anywhere in a town near you. But she writes, hey, that's like folks soaking tampons in whiskey and putting it in their backsides. I'll
have to use that on another show, Sally.
Yep, that's a totally different place to go, Sally, and I'm not wanting to go there at all. But, the whole thing that we've got going on at the border is a national security, because we've got these people that are coming here really to kill off Americans, to kill off our youth.
Well, I seen a whole big thing with MS-13 again, but it was still an argument on. But here's something I will say is that a lot of Democrats are starting to notice how dumb all this stuff is.
Why are they noticing how dumb and stupid all this stuff is?
Because Trump isn't there to blame anymore, and now they're starting to see, and now they're getting the effect from it too. Now they're starting to see the effect of it too. Like looting is legal, in places like California. Let's defund the police, even though they can't even handle. It takes them 15 minutes to respond already. Taking guns away from people while people are, and telling them to run while people are breaking into their houses or carjacking them with their kids in their car, with guns. Look at New York. We're so gun safe or gun unfriendly. Yesterday they had a mass shooting at a subway, or on a couple of subways. People are noticing that it's not the people going and interviewing white people on racism and stuff like that, and then going and interviewing and people watching it finally and being like, that's got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, the people are beginning to quote unquote vote with their feet because they're leaving the Democratic cities in droves. And they do realize about 9 months ago, 10 months ago, a year, they were using the news media across, well, not all the news media, but certain news media were saying we're going to have a red wave if this keeps up. I said it's going to be a tsunami. I really do believe it's going to be a tsunami, but I think I think the Democrats that are coming out saying they're against these policies now, I really think they realize the Democratic Party is in for an ass whooping.
Oh, I think it's in for an ass whooping all the way around. I think the people that, well, here's the thing. What was it? 75 million, according to their stats, 75 million voted for Trump and 80 million voted for Biden, right? And that, okay. So what happens if Trump runs again, even if it has to be all the way to 2024? What happens if Trump runs again and now all of those 80 million voters aren't going to vote for Biden again? They're not going to vote for Harris either.
They don't have anyone else on the ticket to look up to. So
they would vote for anybody right now except for Biden, a lot of them, and I know a few of them one of them's in New York City, and he's a long time Democrat, and he's like, I can't handle this anymore. This is beyond stupidity. Bill Maher did a show with Joe Rogan talking about, I haven't changed. The Democrats, I'm not going conservative. The Democrats have just gotten goofier and goofier. It's beyond understanding.
Yes. Frank James, by the way, when you were talking earlier about the subway shooting, it was one car. 10 people were shot, 5 in critical condition. They're all supposed to be able to live. There were another 18 people who were injured. And you know what really got me about that whole scenario, Chad? At one point, a couple of the people made the statement, it seemed as though his gun jammed. I would like to know why there wasn't one man, not one man on that subway car, knowing that the gun jammed, didn't just go up to that guy and put him down.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that on here just because I don't want to get banned. But whenever you're told, whenever you keep telling people that the police are there to protect you whenever they can, or, you know, whenever, and to stay away, you're told to run. That's what you end up doing, because that's what people up there are told to do, is told to run.
Well, and I guess if you've got leadership telling you that, that's a horrible way. Right here, Sally said that it took about 15 minutes before the shooting happened that they caught him, but no, they didn't, because it's misinformation. They caught him this morning, by the way, or just late this morning. But what really gets me about this scenario is the fact that people aren't stepping up anymore. You know,
that's what I'm saying, is you're told to run.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're told to run and to video it to make sure nothing else. If you don't run, you're videoing it, you know?
Yep. And if that thing is, the news media, believe it or not, I don't know if you heard this, they would not say that it was a black man. They were saying it was a 5'5" guy, 185 pounds. Truth be told, the guy was closer to 6 foot and probably about 240 pounds. He was a big dude, no doubt. No. But he was a black man. And until people start being honest in the mass misinformation media and being truthful to society, we're not going to be able to make appropriate changes of. Because it's not white supremacists. Although there are white supremacists out there doing stuff bad, I'm sure. It's not white supremacists. This is a black guy that went after the Asian community and he terrorized everyone. And yet they don't want to label it a terroristic act.
And see, even a lot of the blacks are tired of this white supremacist, everything's racist stuff. Even the blacks are tired of that because they're like, hey, we want to show we started this. And I'm not talking about BLM, but they're talking about, you know, actual racism. They're talking about how we do this to actually combat actual racism. If a guy does something like this isn't racist. This is stupidity, you know?
Yep.
Same thing with most of the voter ID stuff, or having to have an ID, you know?
You know, Chad, have you not heard me say I've got an answer for almost everything? True. Do you know how we can stop illegal voters at the voting booth?
How's that?
We have voter police. Other words, I am a police officer, a voter police officer, and I walk up to an individual. I say, how are you doing? My name is Vince. And I'd like to know, are you here to vote? And they look at me and they go, brrr. Well, automatically, that allows me to say, you know what? You're not speaking English in an English-speaking nation. Uh-oh. There's a lot of, can you guys see that flickering? Yeah. There's like this. If you don't speak English, you were not educated in the American educational system. Simple as that. Henceforth, it should be easy to apprehend the 20 million illegals that are, the 2 million that came in this last year. And another, right now we've got what Title 42 is, if by chance it gets reversed, Title 42 gets reversed on May 23rd. Right now, 144,000 people are waiting to bum rush the border.
That's no surprise. I mean, that's not a surprise, really.
Hey, Donna, how are you?
Hey, Donna.
Well, the sad part about all this is the National Guard, I watched them doing their exercises, and you've got, what, 20, 40 guys and women? It is not going to fare well for the National Guard.
Well, I mean,
holding shields.
Yeah, that's no surprise. I mean, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, the Border Patrol and at the border, they've already been, I mean, Mike Miller's stuff. You see how many people are actually coming across. I mean, it's not, I don't even know how to describe it, really. It's not anything that's been new since probably 2020, whenever the election started, and Biden was praising all this. Biden and AOC and Nancy Pelosi and all of them were praising all of this stuff. Well, that gets them more voters in. So,
but that's the whole thing. How can we stop them from voting? Like I just said, if they're not speaking English, they weren't educated here. Therefore, they need to be apprehended at that moment.
No, I agree. And sent right back.
And it doesn't matter what country, but they need to be sent back. Governor Abbott is doing his best to maintain the wall. The Arizona is even wanting to reinforce and get the wall.
That's what happens when you have all them people coming in. I mean, you know how many counties and areas in Texas is flipped now because they realized what happened, and a lot of them didn't want the border to be open anyway. But enough stuff happens and they flip over. It's like, hey, we want to secure the border instead of having these illegals coming through, tearing up our fields and robbing our, stealing all our stuff. And they might not be robbing the houses.
Well, Darius writes, why don't you make them just show tax returns? I don't care myself about what language you speak. I want to see if you contribute to our society. Darius, that's a very good point. But the thing is, in order for them to show their tax reforms or tax forms, they actually have to work, and they have to get a green card to work. Then they have to get naturalized papers before they get, quote unquote, a social security number for which to pay taxes. So that's 4 things right there. And the 5th thing would allow them to, of course, vote. So, Darius, that's why the tax returns would not work. Because they're not legal citizens with a paying into Social Security, into the taxes as structured by our country, the United States of Mexico. Oh, I'm sorry. United States of America. And so when you've got these people that, and darn right well, and Darius, I think you would agree, darn right well, if you've got this administration, the Democratic Party, allowing people to just freely come across the border, do you really think they're going to have intelligent decisions based upon the education of knowledge of who the right candidate is and what the candidate represents? And what the candidate wants to represent for their constituents in that county, city, state? Absolutely not. They're just going to straight up vote for the Democrats. So it's going to be basically what they would call, it's going to be a rigged election.
Well, the difference here, Darius, is they want you to be able to be up and just go up and put your name on something and vote. So if you came to America and put Darius Stone on a ballot and put down what you wanted to vote for, you could. Then you could come back as Jailbird, Sally Bright, Donna Fuller, Chad Candy, any of us, and then vote again. And
Yes.
One election, they said that Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, and Donald Duck all voted for elections. I forget where that was, but it was up in Michigan or something like that.
That's the problem, Darius. We have voter registration cards for votes for people to vote. But unfortunately, they wouldn't have one because they're not. Again, they didn't get the green card. They didn't become naturalized citizens to obtain a Social Security, which allows them to quote unquote pay taxes and vote. It's really that simple,
And also, Darius, you could go to, say, a nursing home and have ballots for every person in that nursing home, fill it out for them, and then just have them sign it and mail it in. And then you would have the whole nursing home or hospice center voting for whoever you wanted them to, and just tell them to sign the form.
John made a point here about go back to when you had when you owned property to vote way back when with Bonanza. John, that worked back then, but it won't work in the year 2022. And
That
then
will not work in the year 2022, but
yeah, it's not going to work. Now Sally says you would be able to ballot stuff drop boxes. And Darius, that's exactly the problem that we had in the 2020 election. We had people me, for instance, dumping 1,000 votes in a box. Me, dumping 1,000 separate envelopes in drop boxes. That's what the problem is, Darius. Now Darius writes, says, you want to read it, Chad?
I don't know that one word. I'm sorry. That's where I can't say it. Ostracization comes from. I know the word. It's Greek for pottery, and you had to have a pottery token to vote on, or to vote on who to kick out. I'm sorry, I just can't read today.
That's okay, but that's another thing. Here you are, Darius. Don't get me wrong. What's that?
I said ostracization. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I can't even say it. That's why I let you do it.
I figured that's what you were doing.
No, Oh, never mind. Not going to do it.
Ostracization.
Anyway, that worked for the Romans and the Greeks, but that's not going to work for 2022 again. I
just couldn't say it, Darius. I just couldn't. It wouldn't roll off my tongue. So.
And exactly, I think John is saying, who was there to check their IDs and see if they were on the voter rolls to begin with?
In Florida, we had to have our ID and then sign our signature on one of those little signature pads to make sure our signature matched our driver's license at like 7 points. So that's what we had to do to get a ballot. And, of course, then it was put into a Dominion scanning machine.
Here we go. Both of us say this together. Ostracization.
That's with the English accent to it.
Ostracization.
Yeah.
Sally, you're absolutely right. Surveillance cameras have turned up dozens of people doing huge drops of ballots. And what the people would say at that point would be, well, notice I have to go with an accent here. But Osby's picking these up from my friends and my family, and I was dropping these off for them. Well, guess what? There ain't no dozen John Smiths, and there ain't no dozen Robert Jones. What's that?
I said, I bet you there might be a dozen John Smiths. So.
Well, I just heard that Frank James is the name of the guy that did the subway shooting terror trip there. And I didn't know, but he doesn't look like he would have been a Jesse James relative by no means.
I don't know. I tried to look up my ancestry before, and my grandfather's name is James Herschel Jones. Try looking up that one and find a correct match.
Wow.
My great-grandfather's name is James Herschel Jones.
Well, here we go with the little bleeping thing here, folks. Now, Chad, I've got to tell you, actually, and yes, John's absolutely right. There was nobody there. There were no Democrat and Republican bipartisan pair to check to see IDs as they were going into the drop boxes. But John, basically, they bypassed legislative laws in 6 states, which meant those 6 states should have been disqualified from the electoral votes. That's my opinion, and I think that's. I mean, there are rules of the game. Make men men again. There you go. Did you go and just put that shirt on?
Yeah. I was cleaning my pool in the yard before, so my shirt had holes all in it. So I had to go. It was one of my old Mustang shirts. So Darius was asking what my shirt said. So.
Okay. And that's a whole thing. We lack male figures in America across the board that are men. We have too many broken families. We don't have the unity of the foundation of the families. And that is probably, I would say that's probably the number one biggest reason why we have the problems that we have here in America.
I would too. I would definitely say that. I had male figures around me, even though it was my grandfather and my neighbor's dad, but I grew up out in the country. So, you have families that just grow up together, I guess you'd say. They live next to each other for 20 to 40 years, and you just kind of their family becomes your family. So,
Yep. Yep. And you relied on one another. You really did rely on one another. And so when you don't have the parental lead of a male figure in the family, and a woman is struggling so desperately alone because of the sperm donor she decided to pair up with for whatever reason, and you can't judge her for that. Obviously, sometimes we make bad choices. And hindsight being what it is, I'm quite confident that a lot of those ladies wished they had made better choices.
Oh, yeah. I know a few of them.
But
and actually, here's what I find funny is the ones that don't want anything to do with their sperm donor, that they want to raise their kids without any kind of influence from him, are the ones that seem to be the strongest. That I know 3 or 4 women that totally regret being married. Their husband was abusive, and they have 2, maybe 3 kids, and they don't want anything to do with they don't even want their kids to know who their real dad is,
Yes.
And I actually hung out with a few of those people, and they were like, I'm so thankful for you just to be a male figure to them with no kind of relationship other than close friendship with them. No benefits or nothing like that, other than if they cook something, they'd bring some to me. So,
right. In other words, you were like a male role model. You were a big brother. You were, and I too have taken that position many times. Darius, I want to tell you something about the trans people. First and foremost, you're looking at less than 1% of the people in America are trans people. That's a very small number of people. So as far as they call it nuclear families. I call it European values and traditional values of those families, because that's what America was based on, primarily the European nationalities, different that they are, coming over here to America, but they had traditional values. They want to use the term nuclear family, which is crazy. And transgenders, I have to tell you, whatever they want to do, they want to do. Just don't come into my life. That's all.
That's because a nuclear has to do with the bonding.
Oh, okay.
But the bond.
Well, now it does make sense, I guess, that phrase. And John makes a good point here. I've always been the bad influence. Parents would say, don't be like him. So in a way, John, I guess you kind of were a good example of what not to be. Of course, I don't know if I could readily admit to anything like that. I wouldn't want to. So, John, thank you for being definitely a very honest man. If you're like that, that is, which I hope you're not. I mean that. I hope he's not, And yes, it was actually, Darius, it was religious persecution, not necessarily the values of traditional families. Most of the people that came during the 16th, 17th century came because of religious persecutions and not wanting to have a monarchy in England, in this case, where those people feel that they were divine rulers appointed by God.
For example, Darius, like in Europe, especially whenever Americans started leaving, you had to be almost all schools were religious based, Catholic based, for example, or Protestant based. And that's not the case here in the U.S., or was never the case really in the U.S. It still happens, but you have to actually pay extra to go to a religious school because it's private, not funded by the government. That's the same reason, you have the right to bear arms in the U.S. because of us fighting a tyrannical government such as Britain, and the freedom of speech, so you didn't get arrested for saying something on the street, which they take way too far in a lot of cases now. So,
Well, I hope you answered him on that one. Now I want to go a little bit further because talking about parents, Chad, you do have children, correct?
you should know that. Yes, I do have children.
Okay, again, I don't know how much personal information you wish to share.
I don't care if people know I have children. If somebody
Okay.
tries to mess with my children, they might end up dead because I do have Second Amendment rights, especially in Florida.
So I'm going to throw this out to you. I'm a teacher, and let's just say you have, and I don't know, this is all hypothesis. This is all a make-believe scenario, folks. Chad, you have a 7-year-old son. I'm a teacher, and I start telling your 7-year-old son, just because he has a little tallywhacker, a penis, that he doesn't necessarily have to be a boy if he wants to feel like he may be a girl.
If you tried to talk about that in our schools here, you'd be fired within a week, with less than a week.
Now, my next question to you is, if a teacher does try to promote that, and we even know and have her, him, it, whatever that thing was that I saw last week on TikTok, saying that they think that they should, don't you think those teachers should be, their licenses should be pulled and they should register as sex predators of children?
I don't know about predators, but I think they should be. I don't even know. They'd have to come up with a new term for it, because I wouldn't say sex offenders, or even, I really wouldn't say sexual predators, because I really can't even, I guess I watch too much law enforcement and stuff like that and see what happens, I guess. But I damn sure think their license should be pulled, because no teacher really has the right to talk about sex to my kids, no matter how old. I don't care if they're in a senior in high school. My teacher or the teacher shouldn't be talking about sex with my kids unless it's some kind of a sex ed telling them not to go out and have sex. Right. That's how it was when I was in school with sex ed, is you learned, hey, and that was like in 8th grade, hey, this is a penis, this is a vagina, women have, this is the menstruation cycle. It wasn't more like sex ed. It was more like, this is the difference between a boy and a girl. And if you don't want to end up pregnant, you need to use contraceptives, And
it was biology. They taught biology.
It was basic junior biology for men versus women, or men.
Wow. All right. Well, now at birth, doctors won't even say if it's a boy or girl now. It is getting way out of hand. And you're absolutely correct. It's getting way out of hand. If I was a parent and I heard that my child was quote unquote, and I've heard this scenario, by the way, that a teacher tells the children, do not mention the things that we speak about here in school to your parents. And I'm gender bending them or indoctrinating them, or I'm grooming them for a gay lifestyle. I think that should be really, I think it should be against the law.
If you talk to my kids, I don't give a crap who you are. I don't give a crap if you're the neighbor, the teacher, the police department, whatever. You don't tell my kids not to talk to me about stuff you've talked about. I don't care who you are.
Well, I find it to be very, very offensive. For instance, that Pete Buttigieg and you know where I'm going to go with this, using the I don't want to say mantra, I know the word I want to use. with the Pledge of Allegiance, turning around using all gay terms to a bunch of kids that are 10, 8, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old in the classroom about the Pledge of Allegiance, basically making a mockery of it, of the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to have been a parent on that one and gone in there and punched his lights out.
They're trying to make a mockery of anything patriotic, from the Star Spangled Banner to the flag to the Pledge of Allegiance, you know.
But guess what? And you're absolutely right, Darius. Sexuality isn't really the domain of a government to regulate. But if you don't teach this in your schools, you won't get federal money to operate that school. Okay. So the government is actually pushing this.
Now, just an example, and Darius, I'm sure you've seen about the U.S. and stuff, and we've got the state I grew up in of Texas is bigger than the U.K., you know, and even France too. So I grew up in Texas and live in Florida, and you know how many tomboy kids that I knew that were completely straight, but would be told, not at that time, but nowadays, if they moved to another place, they'd be told that they're probably lesbians or transsexuals because of how much they act like boys. And that's just how they grew up. I mean, you grew up playing in the woods. You grew up playing with, you know, cops and robbers. You grew up playing around boy stuff. So if you grew up out here, you're likely to be a tomboy. I mean, but that doesn't mean anything compared to, I mean, if you lived in another place, you'd be likely to be, oh, well, you like wearing blue jeans and, you know, T-shirts and going out and hanging around a bonfire, you know. That's not typical women, you know.
And Darius asked this question: do you think a teacher, etc., can influence a child to actually be gay? Yes, I do.
It's happened here before, Darius. They've actually kept calling a kid, a boy, she, because they said, and this was it was before 6th grade, and they actually kept calling him she because they were convinced that he was a she because of the way he acted, and actually charges became pressed because he didn't want to be a she, but they just felt like he was a she, so they kept pushing the
agenda
point.
Yep.
You know, agenda. Yeah.
And you know, that's a whole thing. That's a whole thing. I think Darius said it very well. They're grooming through a syllabus. You know, they're
John did too.
Yeah, and I agree that it is. It's grooming. So when you're grooming these children, to me, again, I digress, but I really feel as though if you're grooming a child, you're molesting the child's mind.
You are. That's one of the reasons why I moved out where I did is because the schools got such high ratings and they don't try to necessarily groom kids. You know, my daughter was in Cub Scouts / Boy Scouts whenever she was 2 and 3, but they went out. How old were they? 5 and 6. And they were out going out to learn how to shoot guns and stuff like, or BB guns and bow and arrows and how to camp and stuff like that, which I think if the Girl Scouts did more of, than the Girl Scout, because you don't hear, the only thing you hear about Girl Scouts anymore is cookies. You know, in fact, you don't hear more about the Boy Scouts anymore either, since they always try to start a fight with it, you know.
Well, no, they actually integrated the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts about 6 to 10 years ago.
Well, my daughter was in the Boy Scouts as far as stuff went. So
right. See, that's what I'm saying. There's no longer Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. And when that first came out, that was about, like I said, I'm going to say 6 to 8 years ago. Because
my daughter didn't learn so much while she was doing that, I would be 100% against it. But my daughter did learn a lot by being in the Boy Scouts. So that's the only reason why I wasn't against it. And she's not a tomboy necessarily, but she ain't a girly girl either most of the time either. So she wants to go out and do all kinds of crap that boys will do, but we live in the country. So that wouldn't be going on in the city. In fact, the Girl Scouts here would probably do more than the Boy Scouts in, say, somewhere like Los Angeles or New York.
And you know what? I think I applaud you for allowing her to do that, Chad. And why do I say that? Because it gives her a vantage point of protecting herself against bad men. When she gets older, she's learned a few things. She's learned how to survive. She's learned how to be stronger, tougher, more resilient, more thick-skinned. And yet, probably a fine young girl. How again?
Oh, I'm planting a cactus under her window.
You're doing.
Yep. I'm planting cactuses under all the windows, maybe. So, and I agree, Ruth. Boy Scouts is for boys, Girl Scouts is for girls. But Boy Scouts is where she was able to learn a lot of stuff that I couldn't teach her all the time. That she would actually have, somebody trained to use guns. At the time, now I could. In fact, we're going over to my friend's house next weekend and putting up targets with her BB gun and bow and arrow and everything for them to go not play with, but learn from.
Sure. Sure. And I think that, and again, Chad, I think that's wonderful that you have that parental flexibility to see or to know that your daughter has a desire to accomplish something, and yet there's very few girls that she can compete with, but she's willing to compete with the boys and learn with the boys. And I think that's wonderful.
She wants to compete with everybody.
Okay.
Even us. So she
oh,
wants
boy.
to compete with anybody on anything she can find. She wants to compete with them,
Oh, boy.
No, I'm putting a cactus under there, John, instead of a garden rake. So.
Well, John also said that he was a Boy Scout. He won't camp unless he has a real bed, air conditioning, and a fridge full of beer. John, you sound like you're high maintenance, man.
He's like your age or something, I think. So
hey, whoa. See, I was in a Boy Scouts. I went to an all-boy military school. Okay. So we didn't have the girls to deal with. But, we did swim from island to island in the Delaware River on Treasure Island and Eagle Island. We did, in fact, swim back and forth. The girls did as well as we did. And, it wasn't that too big of an area for which to do. Took canoes, rowboats, swam. I mean, we did what we wanted to do. And none of us ever got hurt, thank goodness. Think about it, though. The Delaware River. Different times it could be rough, but really it was fun. And again, we shared the marshmallows and s'mores and stuff like that at the campfire sometimes, and it was good. But when it came down to it, at the end of the day, they went back to their homes and we stayed in our little huts, our little cabins or tents. John says he's only 44.
Sorry, John. I thought you were older than that.
And sorry, John, but I guess you were insulted to think you were old as me.
Well, you're like 61, aren't you?
Yes. 10-4 is my birthday, big buddy. 10-4. And proud of it, by the way. I'll be 60. Yeah, I'll be 62 this year.
You are old. You're old enough to be my daddy.
Did I? Oh my goodness. Well, you're only as old as you feel, and right now I feel like I might be in my mid-20s, early 30s. So, getting back to, the thing is, the teachers, I think, that are pushing the issues of grooming children to be gay, because that's what it really comes down to. I don't think it's their place.
I don't even know if it's to be gay. I think it's to be so much less masculine, and then it just kind of turns into them, I think maybe it started out as them being less masculine. Like toxic masculinity.
Okay.
And then it kind of turns into, if you weren't so masculine, you wouldn't be so offended by gay people. and then it kind of turns into, well, if you're offended by gay people, it's toxic masculinity. And then it was become, well, we see how you adapt to being against toxic masculinity. So maybe you are really gay. Is that how you really feel? Do you like taking showers after football practice? Do you look around at other guys?
Well, I think we all look at the competition. For instance, and by the way, Darius, October the 4th is my birthday, not April. October 4, 10-4. But, I think like when I would go out somewhere or if I went to an event, I would look around the room. And if I'm with a woman, I always pointed out a handsome man or a well-dressed man because I looked at it like this. That was my competition.
Yeah.
So I would gravitate or they would gravitate to me. Either which way it went down, somewhere along the line, we would gravitate because there was something that was mutually admired and mutually respected about the way we looked, our appearance, the way we kept ourselves.
Hold on. I just want to throw in something. That's what happens with international people talking. You said 10-4. 10-4 would be April 10th in the UK.
Okay.
So they write their number. They write it backwards compared to us.
Okay. Well, that makes a big lot. I thought that was probably going to be the case. Yeah, Darius, I'm October the 4th, not April the 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do it the wrong way around. And actually, Darius, when it comes to 10-4 here in America, I'm kind of surprised my truck driver didn't say it means okay, big buddy.
Acknowledged. Okay.
Yeah. I like it. Hey, Russell, how are you, man? He said gay used to mean happy, and it did. And faggots used to mean a cigarette or a bundle of wood.
I thought it was a fag that was a cigarette, not a faggot.
Right. A fag would be correct. A fag would be a cigarette, and a faggot would be a bundle of twigs, a bundle of twigs.
And a bitch was a female dog in heat. So.
A bitch, yes. Now that we got some of those nasties out of the way, it still means a cigarette there in London.
Yeah, it still means a cigarette blood.
So I guess, Chad, you're going to have a fag right now?
I am. I'm going to smoke it.
I could join you, but I would probably offend a few people, at least Elisa. And I don't want to offend my girlfriend, Elisa. I don't want to do that. Light up a fag is very different over here. Oh, notice how PC he was just in that statement. That's Darius, you just threw me through a loop. I did not know that the Brits were politically correct. Oh,
I knew that's what he was going to say. I like you, Darius.
Wow, man. So they have that much of a stranglehold on you, huh? No freedom of speech, Darius?
I was going to say, he's on Twitch. They don't even want you playing Russell's song on Twitch because they're trying to block all music pretty much. Everything's copyright banned, even if nobody flags it. So,
wow. Well, Darius, you've been a plethora of information, of new knowledge to me, and I want to say thank you, man. I mean that. Thank you. I can't believe that one person 5-6 hours out from us. Thank you. You just taught me a lot tonight. Thank you. So, getting on with this program of what we're kind of muddling through here and me venting, because again, folks, I'm venting. I'm very ticked off, Chad. I responded to a situation. It was like a post on Facebook, and all of a sudden, I just started getting slammed from all these Democrats. And I mean, they just got harder and harder, louder and worse. and it was vulgar and so on and so forth. So far, I have not seen one of them, by the way. Not seen one of them on the program here. All of them that because I said, if you got, and I did, I wrote, got balls? Watch my show. You want to call me a troll? A troll, if I'm not mistaken, lives underneath a bridge. But
yeah, I agree.
And they kind of stalk people. They trip you so they can take your money.
They actually do that to a lot of. It's fun, and some of them are even bots.
Well, I don't think these guys were bots. I think these guys were just spineless, unintelligent.
Yeah. It's easy to be a keyboard warrior, man.
Well, the thing is they don't want to listen to truths. And when they said that Trump and Putin were tight in bed, I'm like, are you kidding me? Hunter Biden's laptop states he got $3 million from a rich widow Russian oligarch.
Okay, well, this was from what a liberal in our waning liberal in California said about Trump and Putin. And he said if Trump and Putin were so tight, why didn't Putin invade Ukraine while Trump was president? Because Trump wouldn't have done anything to Putin since they're so tight. So if Trump and Putin were so tight, like the liberals claim, or the leftists claim, I don't even want to say liberals, leftists claim, then why did he invade Ukraine while Trump was president?
Exactly, because Trump did not want to go along with that agenda. And if you remember a couple weeks ago, I had mentioned about Trump sitting down with NATO saying, listen, you guys need to pay your fair share and stop buying your energy, your uranium, for instance, and your oil from Russia. We buy today, right now, we're buying uranium from Russia. And yet we've got our own uranium here. And this whole administration is, I don't know any other way of saying it, but ass backwards.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll send you some videos that you probably won't watch, but I'll send you some videos. I know you don't, it takes you 3 days to respond to me about something, so don't even,
Yeah, but I do. No, I mean, I do. It may take me a minute. That's true.
But just the reviews of stuff from some of these people that used to be, or that would be called leftists before, that are waking up. And I used to watch some of their song reviews from Tom McDonald and I think Tom McDonald actually woke some of them up. The song that the guy that plays on the Conservative View, the intro to that.
Right.
And by the way, Darius, I don't think Trump was trying to dismantle NATO, really. He just didn't want the U.S. paying for all of it.
Yep. He wanted them to pay their fair share for the Americans that were over there, helping them with their, on military bases, training, making sure to keep basically policing the portions of Europe as it was. And he was a very strong president.
Yeah, Biden is definitely a weak president. Definitely weak. I mean, he can't even lift his feet up to get up the stairs. That's how weak he is. So.
And Darius, I'm not exactly sure where the high maintenance, but I know, I think I mentioned that to John earlier. I said John was high maintenance. Oh, but no, it's very sad that where we're at right now, that Biden cares more about, and I'm going to say it like this, that he cares more about Ukraine's border than he does our own. And that's why I think he should be brought on charges of treason, which is an executionable offense.
That will never happen, though. If that was going to happen, if any of that was going to happen, it would have happened years ago with so many. Maxine Waters would be on top of the list. Nancy Pelosi would be on top of the list. There's so many that would be on top of the list for if they could, and they're still politicians. Joe Biden got busted with quid pro quo while he was vice president, while they were trying to prove that Trump was a
Russian collusionist.
The Russian collusion with Trump being impeached. Biden actually, it came out on videos, calls multiple times that Biden actually said, I'm not going to give you this unless you do this.
Yep.
You know, I'm not
And
going to
that
give
was
you
he
a report unless you fire the
prosecuting attorney that was going up against Permisa, which was a company that Hunter Biden was
and that
sitting
came
on the board of.
uncovered, and he still supposedly won president.
Yep. You know, it's the thing that and I agree with you, sadly enough, and I'm going to say it like that because
Oh, hold
I'm
on.
out of. I
Darius,
wish,
I'm Chad. John's somebody in the Facebook chat, so I'm Chad, not John. So
oh no, yeah, no, Darius, yeah, this is Chad. John Porta was on here earlier in the chat. But see, this is where I think we should go with our executions now. We've got people that we know for a fact. For instance, I'm going to give you the SUV.
okay.
Rolling down people. And that man still breathes today.
You have people saying that they want to be executed by a firing squad now instead of waiting on death row, and they still won't execute them because some of these states still aren't allowing, or there's a shortage of it, of the drugs they use to execute people by lethal injection, and they're saying, shoot me by firing squad then, and they're denying it.
And that's sad because I think South Carolina just approved the firing squad again.
They're still having trouble actually putting it through.
Okay. But see, the thing is, we spend so much money keeping this garbage, these savage animals alive in our prison systems when that money can be better suited for the tax-paying people.
No argument here. I mean,
we have, and even, so when you've got, literally $1 million more to keep these people alive for like 20 years, there's something wrong with the mathematics on that and how to spend the money out of the wallet.
No argument here. I mean, no argument at all here.
I mean, there are people that are so religious, they say, that's God's, God should take care of this and blah, blah, blah.
Okay. You know how God would take care of it, or how God takes care of it if you really want to see it fairly, is you put those death row people in general population, because most of those death row people end up getting killed by other inmates because of the severity of their crimes.
Yep. They become judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah. And well, I mean, not even, they become executioner because somebody's already judged them and juried them. So now it's like, hey, and then plus stuff knows on the inside that you don't know on the outside. So they probably already know what this guy's done and heard through even though it's gossip, heard what this guy's done. And if you do anything like rape, mess with children, kill your children, anything to do with your parents, you're likely to have a hard time in prison unless you're in isolation. And most death row inmates are in isolation. So with air conditioning and everything else, because they don't want them to go nuts, because what do they have to lose?
Well, Jeffrey Dahmer was killed by a fellow cellmate, more or less. A fellow prisoner. So that right there, it tells me that, yes, you are correct. I think if we were to throw them in there, that would end that. Now, Jailbird just said that Fauci's been arrested. We all
I
pray.
still haven't heard that, but I hope it's true.
Yeah, we all hope that that's true. But here's something I think is a little interesting that Darius said. I've always thought it was a bit unfair on the soldiers to do shooting by firing squad. I wish I could ask him to have dialogue, because this is the way I look at it, Darius. As a soldier, when your commanding officer says, take that hill, you take that hill at all costs. And if it costs the human life of your enemy, of your opponent, so be it.
Also, another thing, Darius, is usually if they have a firing squad, about, say, 6, people, all but one of them will have blanks in their gun, so they never know who actually shot him.
Yes, because they didn't want that set that like 6 people have 6 guns, 1 bullet, and they didn't want the guilt being on all 6 people. But get this, with the South Carolina law, they said it would be 3 shooters shooting into a triangle, into a chair, opening in the back, and all 3 shooters have bullets. That's what I read to being the law as it was written. And as far as putting pedos in general population, no, they put them in general population. They just really try to keep a low key.
Darius, usually if you get the death sentence, then there's no doubt that you did what you're accused of, because they don't give the death sentence to people. I know a lot of the news probably over there makes it sound like, with statistics and stuff, that we just pass out the death sentence over here, especially in places like Texas and Florida, that we just pass out the death sentence like it's candy to anybody that kills somebody. But it really isn't like that. You have to do something really bad, have fully been proved that you've had the death, that you did that, and it has to be something pretty bad too.
And the other thing, Chad, you didn't mention me. I always believe in DNA evidence.
Okay, and so that's gotten some people off, but they're still on life in prison. So it has gotten some people released from 40 plus years ago from the death sentence, but that also means they've been sitting on death row for 40 years. It has got some people off, but most of them you see that get off the death sentence is from death to multiple life sentences in prison. So they got off. That means they got off on a technicality.
Yep.
Of some sort. So they didn't really prove that they were innocent, but they got off on some technicality from getting out of death. But, it's like saying I wasn't drunk when I ran over him on purpose, but I did run him over on purpose. So,
well, right now there seems to be John and Darius are both talking about innocent people. And, I only know of one case personally where a man was put to death in Texas that was within 20 years. And his last name was Davis. And the little bit of information I knew about that particular case, I definitely questioned whether or not that man should have been executed. But, it's going to happen. We make mistakes, but anymore, we now have the technology. We see you in the video. We have eyewitnesses of. Your DNA is at the crime. We know that you bought that gun. We know that you had the reason for which to. So therefore, you're guilty. In this case, the guy with the SUV running over people in a parade, he should not be breathing today. Done.
right. Troy Davis. I'll look that up.
I wish I remember, because I really do feel bad for that man. It's because I was one when I got caught onto a case. And so this is for the viewing audience in general about myself. But when I get zoned in on a case, I sink my teeth in it. I try to get my teeth so far down I'm touching bone. Why? Because before that person is found guilty or what have you, I want to make sure in my head that I've got the facts pretty straight, because we don't ever want to kill anyone or execute anyone wrongfully. That's not what we want to do. But when you've got this subway guy, for instance, oh, by the way, he was on the FBI watch list. He was on the FBI watch list. Frank James, the New York subway shooter yesterday that they apprehended today, the suspect was on the FBI watch list. He had a criminal record of 12 crimes and released out into public because of people like Alvin Bragg, people like George Gascon, these DAs that are not holding our laws the way they should be.
Well, the Troy Davis in Texas that you were talking about, he was on death row for 22 years. And then 9 years after his execution is whenever they found out about the DNA. So.
Right. And I kind of like this idea that John says death row really should be a temporary housing and mostly empty because, in other words, you're going to die, but still, like you just said, let the general population take care of some of these people.
Yeah, put them in, like Troy Davis, like he was talking about, he was a security guard that they said killed a cop. So you probably wouldn't get executed. And even on stuff like that, with so much turmoil between the cops, even if you did kill a cop, you're still not likely to get death row anymore. Now, if you went and killed your mother, your wife, and your son or daughter or whatever else, you're probably likely to get death row in some states.
Yes. And you look at Sue. Well, okay, here you go. Sue Smith is up for parole after she put her 2 babies in the trunk of her car, pushed it down a boating ramp into a lake, and blamed an imaginary, a lie, fictitious, a complete lie, said that a black man did this to her children. And she's actually, believe it or not, they're actually thinking about letting her out of jail.
See that? And I agree, Darius. Me and Vincent even actually argue about that, about the appeals process and just not. Me and Vincent talk about that a lot, to be honest with you.
And we go round and round. And don't get me wrong, that's a wonderful part about this, Darius. And by the way, again, brother, you, John, Russell, Philly Tech, all you guys. And no, don't get me wrong, ladies, you gals as well. We all know this about ourselves because we are a tight-knit group of people here for the better part. But we can agree to disagree. And that's the wonderful part about, that's a wonderful part about having that freedom of speech, because if we all thought the same, if we all had no variance of an opinion, if we all had this, for instance, let's just say the only color clothing you could wear your whole life was red, and the world wore red, what a dull place it would be for such a beautiful romantic color, which basically means love. It would be sad. Okay. We have to be able to agree to disagree. We have to have intelligent conversation, preferably, and basically without vulgar or vile words, name calling. If anyone's going to call anyone names, it's usually me calling myself names. Why? Because that's the way I am. I look like this. I could be a bonehead. I know I could be a bonehead, but I'm okay with that. And if someone comes on here and says, "Hey, Vince, what you just said is a boneheaded statement," I'm like, "Okay, thank you." And
Vincent
maybe
and I call each other names all the time. So
yeah, but I love it when you whisper them in my ears.
I'm glad I live in Florida.
What's that?
Said I'm glad I live in Florida then.
I'm glad you do too, because man, I don't know if I can handle looking at you. Oh, I'm not going to say all that. Never mind. But seriously, folks, if we all wore the same color of clothing every day, one day it's green, one day yellow, another day red, and we all agreed on every single thing, and the world would be boring.
It would be boring.
It would be, and we wouldn't have our individuality. We
right.
wouldn't have that. We wouldn't be who we are. And again, going back to that banner, I'm going to put it down here again. I thought it was such a good thing for today, personally, myself, because again, I didn't want to talk about the news. I mean, you look at what just happened at that college where they had some conservatives that wanted to literally talk about the freedom of speech, and yet you've got this hate group mob of students rallying around them, pushing and shoving and wanting to do physical body harm. That's not right. That's not how civilized people work.
Okay, for an example of that, as we were talking about something earlier to do with that, did you ever watch the Dave Chappelle show that all these people for Netflix was protesting against trans people? Did you watch that?
Yep, and you and I talked about it. You taught me that. Tell them this, please.
Okay, well, if you watch the Dave Chappelle show that Netflix was talking about, all about trans, or not all about trans, it wasn't near all about trans, but it had a lot of stuff with trans in it. If you watch it till the end, he's actually talking about trans people and how one of his best friends was trans and she committed suicide due to all the stuff that they try to push on you about being trans. And that's what I was kind of thinking about with the schools also. And with you talking about all the trolls coming in and messing with you, because he said that he could tell within the first first minute of somebody talking, whether they actually watched the show or not, or even paid attention to anything, or just heard anti-trans and started roasting for, or started coming after him for it violently in some cases, or coming after him violently, and that just kind of, they don't even, the people who usually troll you the worst are ones that don't even pay attention. Like, say, Darius, which I've never seen you before, I'm sorry, but you're coming out and talking logically. You don't like all the stuff that we're talking about over here with, the death penalty or guns and stuff like that, but you're coming up and talking honestly about it and logically about it,
And we appreciate that.
Calling names, and that's how you can tell the trolls, in a sense, is that they just want to call you names and won't even listen. So,
Well, he did he did show his hand in one comment when he said the keyboard warriors, blah, 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 but it can be fun. So I think Darius actually likes to have a little bit of playfulness with himself in that way on a computer like that.
A little bit of playfulness.
I like that phrase of words. But the thing is, and I don't, the thing that I think you left out was the trans guy that committed suicide that Chad is mentioning. Chad, correct me if I'm wrong. He was actually a friend of Dave Chappelle, wasn't he?
He was. He was a friend. He was I don't know if it was a close friend, but it was actually like somebody that he talked to all the time, and
he was a comedian.
He was actually coming out on that, talking about suicide too.
Right, but he was a comedian.
Yeah, I think so.
Guy was a comedian.
Yeah, I think so.
Transgender person. Because I don't know if it was a guy or a girl. But that's the whole thing. If you listen to your own voice and your own soul, if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And that only means all you have to do, folks, believe it or not, in my opinion, step back and reevaluate.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Just step back and reevaluate. Because when you step back and take yourself from that picture, a lot of times you realize, whoa, now I see the dangers of, for instance, teaching 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old children about sex. Because, yes, it's maybe something you want to talk to your kids about, the birds and the bees, but chances are you're not going to talk to your children about the bees and the bees, the birds and the birds, and the birds that think they're bees and the bees that think they're birds.
I still have problems with my 8-year-old daughter sitting down on the couch and spreading her legs open, which you're not supposed to do. So
very unladylike.
Yeah.
I mean, there some girls sit like this, some girls sit like this, some girls sit like that. But the girls that sit like this get that like that, That's what I was taught. My mother had the South Philly squad. A lot of times when a woman opens up the bottom drawer of a filing cabinet, they turn to one side or the other with their legs together. And they open it up. My mother, she would tell you, would spread her legs wide open, pull the filing cabinet right in between her legs. That's why they called it the South Philly squad. because she was from South Philly and working down South Philly around a bunch of Italians. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure it turned a lot of the guys on in the office. But
I know you Italians are crazy, so.
Hey, you better watch it. We got one. We got one right here, right now.
I know. It's crazy. So,
but it's sad when you, like I was just saying earlier about this group of college students. They're idiots.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They're idiots. They could care less about, quote unquote, hearing the opposite side of the opinion or the view.
But here's the thing now that, I mean, because everybody, all of the people even close to that side did like to blame Trump for everything, because honestly, Trump's an asshole, just to be honest with you, and he knew how to push buttons, and now that Trump isn't in office anymore, and now it's Biden, and now that it's 2022, they can't blame Trump for everything anymore, and stuff has gotten so much worse.
Oh, no. It's not. That's true. It's not Trump's fault. It's Putin's fault.
That's what they're trying to say. But people are getting smart enough to realize, hey, people are getting, I might be an optimist on this. Our glass is a little more than half full, but people are getting, and just from scanning on YouTube and stuff like that, and even people that used to vote Democrat, I see stuff like I saw a meme the other day that it was like a mother wearing a Biden shirt, and she's talking to her daughter, and she points down and it's like, it's funny that you still believe in the Easter Bunny. And it's the kids like, it's funny that you still believe in Biden.
Well, it's very sad that our country is so divided, because he ran, if I'm not mad, correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, but I believe he ran on the premise of unity.
He ran on the premise. They all of them people in his, whatever you want to call it, run on the promise of unity. That's what they always run on. But the problem with this one is he ran 80% on COVID and how he was going to fix COVID and open the borders. And now people are tired of open borders, and they're really, really, really tired of COVID.
Well, funny that you should bring that up, because this week in the news,
I know what you're going to say.
We have a mad rush, believe it or not, we have a mad rush coming across the border of people not wearing masks, of disease that's unknown to North America.
That's not what I thought you were going to say, but go ahead.
And what's that?
I said that's not what I thought you were going to say, but go ahead.
And yet we still have to wear masks on planes. We have to have a passport to come back into the country in which we live in. And in New York, believe it or not, under Eric Adams, I really had a lot of hope. He talked the big game, folks. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, when he was running for the mayor, he talked a big game. No, I would rather have had the Republican win, naturally. Still, but he talked a big game for the Democrat, for being a Democrat, and he is nothing but a joker.
He is a puppet, is all he is.
Yep. And he's making 2-year-old children mask up.
Well, from what I saw, they were dropping most of that. Well, for most of that. But Philadelphia just said that they're trying to reenact the indoor mask thing because of rises in, and this is what I find funny on the news. Even now, the news keeps saying about how COVID cases are dropping every month. They're saying the new record low. But somehow or another with some, and I won't say it's phantom because I'm sure this COVID, the new variant is real. It probably is real, but it's supposed to be less dangerous, but more contagious than the last one. And the last one didn't do nothing. So you're telling me, in other words, this is a cold.
Well, yeah, basically that's what it would be. And it isn't as severe, like you said. It's not as dangerously severe, life-threatening. But the thing is this, we've got to just learn to live with it. And Jailbird, no, I watched on Fox News this morning that they dropped off 23. Again, I could give you the numbers, 19 men, 4 women on a bus in D.C. And when asked by a reporter, where are you going to go from here? The guy looked at him and said, Miami.
Well,
So,
just to let you know, the little plexiglass shields they had up at the gas station for, so you couldn't talk to each other really too well. They took them all down at the gas station by my house. They're saying no COVID enforcements are in effect no longer.
wow, Kimberly said, this is sad, folks. I mean, again, we were talking earlier about how some of the news media didn't even want to say the color of the man's skin on the subway shooting. And this is what Kimberly just wrote.
A lot of them didn't.
Had a drive-by day before yesterday, a drive-by shooting basically, near area of where a 16-year-old was shot and killed, 2 blocks away. It's black on black crimes. Good day to all. She's a wreck, but they still will be caught in due time. And she says, forever Joe Biden and forever Kamala Harris. I think that's what she means by that, Chad. Or what do you read that being?
I don't think. Are you trying to lose Kimberly as a fan?
No, we all know what the F means. And I believe it would be fornicate.
That's one way to put it. That's
a nice way to put it. Oh, and by the way, Kimberly, you just wrote this too. My gas station put up bulletproof glass. Did you hear about the guy, Chad, that was putting up the stickers that said, I did that? He was arrested for disorderly conduct, vandalism, for putting a sticker on a gas pump. He was arrested for disorderly conduct, vandalism.
I did not see about that.
Oh, yeah, and I guess he was resisting arrest. Who wouldn't? I'm just putting a damn sticker on a gas pump, folks.
I saw the sign that said, if you remove stickers from this gas pump, it's vandalism, and you're on camera.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's how lopsided. I think it was very well put by one of the reporters I was listening to. But when you think about this administration and you think about the woke, which, by the way, I just found out today the exact definition of woke, which are people who are standing up against political and social injustices. Well, I think it's very socially injustice that the Black Lives Marxist movement turned around and bought a $6 million house.
Oh, that's funny. I saw that.
And yet they're not putting any money back into the black communities.
No, and that's why you don't hear shit about BLM anymore. I'm sorry, it's not after done. That's why you don't hear anything about BLM anymore. You don't hear anything about BLM anymore.
Isn't that amazing?
Because they got so busted, so many things with not putting anything back into any kind of black community, even back into their own protests.
Yep.
And they were all just going free. It's a free for all,
So here you've got a group that's internationally known, and these people are, of course, internationally known as Marxists. If they're not, they should be, because that's exactly what they are. They are self-admittingly, by the way, saying that. They are self-serving. They don't do anything for the people that they say they're trying to help.
So do you listen to any Tom McDonald? I know.
His music?
Yeah.
I've listened to some of it, yeah.
Okay. That should be one of our closing songs. I don't know if you can share or not, or if it's Carl in charge of that, but
well, that would be Carl, but thank you very much, and you can offer that to Carl. You know how to reach him on that. But, Chad, I want to thank you because you and I have not had the guy talk for a while. And I also heard that you're on another program where you can actually cut loose with your
it's pretty
colorful language.
Colorful, yeah, on a couple of them, and it's on Prometheus Network, which Paranormal Nation Radio on Tuesday night is now on too. So,
well, Kimberly is closing up the show here, by the way, Chad. They have been indicted, and they are indicted on federal charges for scamming donation, and that would be basically tax fraud. So thank you, Kimberly. Chad, I want to thank you. I think you probably want to say the same thing I do, especially a shout out to Darius.
Darius, you surprised me tonight. So
yeah, you shocked me. I learned a lot from you, brother, and I thank you for that. But Chad, thank you for joining me. And
no problem. Anytime.
And catching up and send that stuff. I may see it in another day or two. But, I got a busy life here, man. I'm sorry. You know that.
I got 2 kids jumping on the trampoline behind me. I don't want to hear about your busy life. So.
Oh, there goes Ross. Ross is even chiming in a little bit about the kids on the trampoline. But, really one of the reporters had said this about this administration. And up is down. Left is right, out is in is out. I mean, it's all mixed up.
It is all mixed up. And I just want to send you some videos to show you how many people say it's so mixed up.
Well, you know what? If that's the case, I need to hear that because as of past couple, about a month now, I've had a pretty kind of, my energy level has been somewhat, I don't want to say diminished, but it's been like, I feel like I've almost given up hope.
Me too, to a point.
And the thing is, I do believe the midterms are going to be a big uplifting.
I still think it's a red tsunami coming in for the midterms.
Yeah. And
because I think of a lot of the liberals or leftists, they won't even go out and vote this time.
Oh, really?
I think a lot of them won't even go out and vote this time because they don't want to vote for a Republican, but they damn sure don't want to vote for the Democrat either.
Wow. Apparently it was a house that was shot up where that 16-year-old was killed. And I guess they're arresting gang members and it's being all over the U.S. And this will give y'all hope. Well, you know what?
County's crazy.
Yeah.
Polk County is the county that the guy said that he would, if they started trying to pull too much BLM stuff there, that he would deputize any citizen with a gun pretty much. So, or if they tried to pull shit that they did the same, the sheriff here tried, but it's Sheriff Grady, I think. So look him up.
Right. I've heard that name, Sheriff Grady, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Well, thank you very much for joining me tonight, Chad, very much. Great catching up. You and I are going to have to definitely have a little, phone call or face-to-face here on Facebook time.
Yeah.
As always, man, thank you. You were just like a breath of fresh air coming on here today with me. Literally, folks. I asked this gentleman, Chad, to come on within 5 to 10 minutes of the broadcast. And I just felt that he balances me out because he has, as you can tell, he's got a lot of much more bright stuff to talk about than I do, but more so he's got a great overall happy way about him. And by the way, I just got my medical marijuana card, so maybe I could join you in that happiness another time. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you, and thank Vincent, Barb, Kimberly, Ross, Darius, whoever else I'm missing.
Sally. Yeah, there's so many of you. Ruth.
Sally, Ruth. Yeah.
And you know what? Ross just chimed in saying that Sheriff Grady Judd cannot be dead enough.
He might have. That wouldn't surprise me.
I do believe I heard that guy on a TV interview, and yep, I remember him because it was a girl and a guy that had stolen a vehicle. The guy ended up dead, and he said that guy can't be dead enough.
Polk is a crazy county. I won't deny that. So,
in fact, no, I think it was actually where several cops shot one guy that came out with a gun that was shooting them. That's what it was. Now I remember it.
that won't
I had
surprise
two
me either.
cases mixed up in my head, folks. Sorry. But yeah, the guy got out of the car. He was a passenger, started shooting at all the cops, and the cops just unloaded into this guy. And he said, he can't be dead enough. I'm like, yes. Save the tax dollars a lot of money and time.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe he should run for governor, huh?
Maybe. I like DeSantis, though, to be honest with you. So
I hear you. I do, too. He's got some moxie. He's got some kudakuns.
oh, yeah.
All right, Chad, thank you so very much.
Thank you, and have a good night.
You too, brother. Peace out.
Peace out.
You know, folks, sometimes we just have to take that moment. I've used this moment now for every Wednesday, pretty much, for quite some time, a couple of months, going on a year in May, the end of May. And originally I said, and I still mean this, it was to inform people about the news of the week and so on and so forth, things that concerned me about what direction our country was going, where we're at right now, and what we need to do. Notice what I just said. What we need to do individually to not only be better people to our family members, but to be better people to our community. And that is things like open the door for the elderly people, help carry the groceries out to their car, get out there and vote. Look at who is running for the office in your county, in your city, in your state. Really dissect these people. This is the most crucial point of the United States of America. I think that will probably be equated in the history of time, later on. This is probably one of the most crucial points of America that would be almost equivalent to the Revolutionary War. And why am I saying that? Because we had a country of misfits, a country of mutts. We had a country of people from everywhere around the world coming to a new-founded land. And we had people that were here before us that we really stole land from. That would be the Native Americans. Treaties were made, always broken. But right now we're at a part of our history where we're being invaded by alien, illegal insurgents. It's an invasion. And the problem that we're going to have, every one of us that are English American speaking citizens, that are tax paying, law abiding citizens, the problem we're going to have with each and every one of these people that have come across illegally under this administration, which is basically destroying and putting our civilization in America as a national security risk. We're going to have a hard time talking and speaking with these people. How are you going to deal with that? I'm not sure I even know how I'm going to deal with it. I know I'm not going to be kind. I want to be kind because I understand they want to come to the land of the rich and the plenty. I understand that. I understand that they want good paying jobs. But when they get those good paying jobs, they send all that money, American money, down to their families in the countries of which they came from. Which essentially, folks, is making our dollar shrink, making it more worthless, and it's not enhancing the betterment of the United States of America. We need to vote. We need to look at who's going to be running. We need to pay attention. It's free. I've said this before. Pay attention. It's free. It doesn't cost you a penny. It takes a little time. Some people don't have time, for instance, maybe to investigate. but reach out to those friends of yours that you know are a doctor or a nurse that are working in that hospital 4, 5, 6 days a week. Take them out to lunch. Explain to them what's happening. Talk to your grocers at the store, the grocery clerks, the convenience store clerks. Intermingle. Become social again. Smile. Get off your phones. Get the earbuds out so you can hear someone shooting, and then you can handle a situation maybe. What happened tragically yesterday on the subway was an abomination. There wasn't one man, not one man or woman that went in the direction of the line of fire. Now, everyone says, oh, Vince, you talk a big game. And I can understand that. But believe it or not, I have walked my walk. And I'll give you one quick little story. Because again, I'll tell this story again another day. I was having a bad day one day. Well, actually, for a moment, I couldn't hardly even walk. For like about a month, having bad back problems. I was going into a convenience store. I was at a gas pump, and I hear this woman yelling, fire, fire. And I looked at her, and I'm like, well, there's no fire at, where you're at. And then I see her pointing because she was speaking Espanol. And I look, and sure enough, there was a car on fire. I briskly, as quickly as I could, and believe me, like I said, I could barely move normally, comfortably at will. Made it into the convenience store, the Quick Trip, and there was this little Mexican man, and he had just pulled the fire extinguisher off the wall, and he was trying to get the piece that holds it to the wall, the bracket. He was trying to get that off the canister to get it ready to go out to the car, and I'm like, give me that. I knew he didn't know what he was doing. I shook that thing upside down, every which way but loose. And folks, that's what you should do with your fire extinguishers at least once a month to make sure that that material doesn't sink at the bottom of it. But I shook that thing off. And when I hit that pump, there was a pole. I banged it, shook it 2 or 3 more times. I'm standing in front of a car that was on fire, out of the gas tank. And all the while I'm praying, God, please don't let this blow up. I put a fire out. That's what we do. That's what good people, good men, good women do. Sometimes we have to put ourselves into the fire, into harm's way. And why no one on that subway at all didn't try to apprehend this man is beyond my mental understanding. I don't get it. I just don't get it. About a month later, Rebecca at Quick Trip handed me a $50 gift certificate for Quick Trip, saying thank you. And it also made Quick Trip redo their policies of turn emergency stops on the pumps. Now they're located on the outside of the building to stop all the gas pumps in case another situation like that was to happen. And believe me, I filled up his gas tank with the fire extinguisher. But and by the way, I'm not saying this because I was some kind of hero. I'm just saying we have to be actively involved. And if by chance I had died during that moment because of an explosion, it was God's will. At least I tried. We've got to learn to start trying more for people. Heard about a friend of mine recently, just today, this afternoon. A woman got her arm fractured by her daughter's boyfriend. It's sad. This 20-year-old punk, who, by the way, is in the military, broke her arm. And I'm like, you're still letting this clown stay in your home? And this isn't the first time he's been physically confrontational. All I could say to her was, at least get a taser gun. Put him down. Folks, you've got to stand up for yourself sometimes, and you have to stand up even more so for people who can't stand up for themselves. Because they matter too. The person in the wheelchair, the elderly person in the cane, or the walker, they do care. For me to think that there's such a mad rush out of the subway that a woman gets a broken clavicle bone in her collarbone because she's being shoved down on the ground while everyone's pushing to get out. There is no such thing maybe as an orderly fashion in a situation that's so terror-filled. But we've got to start having faith within ourselves. And if we have faith within ourselves, we can do so much good for not only ourselves, but for others. Thank you for joining me tonight. I really greatly appreciate it. Chad, thank you very much for joining me. All of you out there, by the way, thank you so much. Because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be who I believe I am. And I hope I'm a better person each and every show. Voraciously, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. Thank you so very much. Good night.